Hey YouTube, Joeboy here. So, the official translation of One Piece chapter 999 is out. You guys know how we do the video. Talk about the official translation, compare it to the fan translation, note any difference, talk about literally anything at all, and then round out the video with comments from you guys. But as always, before we get into it, I want to let you guys know once again that a Revujo print is available. Comments, description, limited time, you guys know the drill. Another week passes, another chapter in which the difference in translations was not huge. But there is one thing that I want to talk about, something that I blonde moment a little bit, but also the official translation just made a whole lot clearer. So in the fan translation, we have Ace talking to Yamato, they're partying, they're laughing, and then we pan to this scene. Ace says, "It's unfortunate, period. You're so strong and we get along so well." And then Yamato says, "If only I could get these off. Then someday surely I will also go out to sea." I put the period in there for a reason, because when I read it, I didn't see the period. I read it as, "It's unfortunate you're so strong and we get along so well," rather than, "It's unfortunate, period. You're so strong and we get along well." It makes a difference. The official translates it like this: "Such a shame when we get along so well like this." Yamato says, "If ever I get these off, I swear I'll go out to sea too." The official translation completely removed this translation of Yamato being strong. Such a shame when we get along so well like this. Nothing about being strong. Also, in general, it just flows better and it makes more sense. So when I first read this, my interpretation is I put an emphasis on the "you're so strong" and also forgot the period. So it's unfortunate you're so strong and we get along so well. So why would Ace be so concerned about Yamato being strong? That shouldn't matter unless Ace, wanted to fight Yamato or was in some way interested or concerned with the fact that Yamato was strong. When you remove this from the translation, the meaning becomes a lot clearer. I don't actually know what is more accurate. People in the comments can let me know if the raws indicate that Ace also talked about how strong Yamato was in this panel. But the point is that when I talked about this in my first reaction, I'm going to completely go reverse, 180 degrees. Oda is straight up implying here that if Yamato hadn't been wearing cuffs and hadn't been shackled to Wano and Kaido, then Yamato would have joined Ace's crew. It's unfortunate, it's a shame that you have cuffs that prevent you from leaving Wano because I like you. Meaning Ace wanted Yamato to travel with him. This scene actually taking place before Ace had joined the Whitebeard pirates. The whole point is that this chapter is about Luffy fulfilling Ace's desires that he had left to the world. I think that now includes recruiting Yamato to the Straw Hat Pirates. I think that is straight up what Oda is implying in this scene. And really the whole premise of the chapter. I would honestly be surprised if by the end of Wano, Yamato does not join the Straw Hat Pirates. Or even if Yamato doesn't join, I'd be surprised if Yamato doesn't travel with them and adventure on the sea. But of course, as I said in my first reaction, I believe that the same thing holds true with Tama, and I got a couple of comments. Obviously, a lot of people who watch my videos don't watch every single one of my videos, so they were like, well, Tama's not going to join because Yamato's going to be the one to join. But the running theory that I have, I discussed, I think a few weeks ago, is essentially Momonosuke travels with these Straw Hats, becomes a Straw Hat member, and then he brings with him, in kind of a similar way to Odin, 2 retainers, and his love interest. So Momo comes with Tama, they're both 8 years old, it's very clear that in game that they are probably matched up together, and then 2 retainers, Yamato and Carrot. So that's my running theory, so I'm fully accepting of any idea of both Tama and Yamato joining the crew. And I do think that that's what's going to happen, because I do think that Luffy is going to fulfill Ace's will, his promises, which includes both Tama and Yamato. Also, while we're here, I want to talk about another theory that I believe. I don't think that I've talked about this too much, but there is a common enough theory around the community that Tama is a Kurozumi, the same family as Orochi. And she might in fact be Orochi's bastard daughter. I believe the first person to really speculate this was Randy Troy, so I'll include a link to his YouTube channel in the description below. But essentially, the theory, it's not all that complicated. We don't know Tama's origins, what happened to her family, why is Tengu Yamahitetsu looking after her, why exactly are the Beast Pirates interested in her? Obviously we know her abilities, but is there more to that? And then we have the same hair color. Tama's hair is purple, just the same as Orochi. But ultimately what sells this theory more than the actual details in the story is the conclusion. Essentially the idea that Tama and Momonosuke becoming friends ends the feud. And even further than this, down the line, obviously in my opinion, Tama and Momonosuke get married. This has already been a theme in One Piece, essentially protect the children's innocence. This was very much emphasized in Fishman Island, in the cycle. But the point of me bringing this up, besides the fact that I believe it, is that I think that this further emphasizes that Tama and Momonosuke are a pair. They will be a pair going forward in the story. So if you think that Luffy has inherited Ace's will and his promises, and is going to recruit Tama because that was what Ace wanted, then I think that Momonosuke has to go with her. Beyond whatever reason Momonosuke himself might have for wanting to travel with them, if this happens. But yeah, last thing before we move on to the comments, I want to talk about this briefly. In the fan translation, Yamato said, even his name carries the initials of D. Initials plural. Of D. Almost said in a way that you could take D to be a person. I'm pretty confident that this is a mistranslation. And the official translates it as you would expect. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into the comments. Avenging someone's death is quite a bit different than saving the life of one of your underlings. Whitebeard wouldn't let Ace or anyone else from his crew die if there was a chance of saving them. So essentially what's being talked about here is there is some community criticism of Whitebeard's character after this chapter, because they don't like the fact that Whitebeard didn't go to Wano and avenge Odin. There's so much wrong with this criticism, it actually hurts me, and the comment that I talked about is one of several reasons. But essentially what they're saying is that it's different to go avenge someone after they're dead rather than retrieve someone or save someone who is still alive. Whitebeard went to go save Ace. Whitebeard didn't go scorched earth after he had found out years after the fact that Kaido had killed Odin. They aren't the same situation. The dead cannot be saved. But actually the evidence here that I find to be more persuasive than anything else is people are complaining about Whitebeard making the decision here, but he's already made this decision in the story, yet people act like something has changed. We learned in an Ace flashback in the middle of Marineford that Whitebeard did not want Ace to go get revenge on Thatch and chase Blackbeard. This specifically happened. Ace is like, I'm gonna go get revenge. Blackbeard dishonored you, disrespected you, and Whitebeard's like, I don't like this situation at all, we need to let it go. I actually find that the death of Thatch is a better one-for-one comparison with the death of Odin than going to go rescue Ace. In this case, both Whitebeard and Oda were very consistent. If you don't understand why Whitebeard is making these decisions, you don't understand Whitebeard. If you still have a problem with it, even if Oda is consistent, then that's a personal preference. If you want Whitebeard to be some other way than he actually is, that's a personal preference, and Oda is not obligated to give you exactly what you yourself want. The fact that fans are entitled in this way is kind of absurd. Where this conversation gets a little bit more interesting is when Oda himself deceives us about the nature of a character. Great example of this recently was Katakuri, when Katakuri was first introduced, and by the time that we finished Whole Cake Island, not the same character. The perfect, unbeatable, never laid down in his life character was a lie. And that reveal was significant in Whole Cake Island. The process of actually learning about this I find is really masterful. You learn why the lie was created in the first place, why people believe it, and the actual truth. In fact, I think that it is actually an example of great writing, even if you personally do not like what Katakuri became, or how that influenced the story. But essentially what Oda is doing here, in Katakuri's case, in Whitebeard's case, and many others as well, is you have a process of learning about the character. When you first meet them, like Nami, for instance, or Robin, for instance, you don't understand them. You don't know them fully. What they might say is not necessarily true. What might be implied by the story is not necessarily true. You learn about them and you come to understand them. And these are often incorporated with various reveals. Oda did the same thing with Whitebeard. There is a panel. Anyone who lays a hand on one of us has to suffer the consequences. We'll make sure those responsible pay for it. Whitebeard said himself to Shanks, Teach committed the one unforgivable crime on a pirate ship, Pirates may not kill their crewmates. That is an iron law. When I let a pirate on my ship, no matter how stupid they are, they become like a son to me. The souls of my dead sons, my crew, call out for vengeance. It's my responsibility to show that fool Teach that you can't live in this world without a code of conduct. You may really like this. In fact, I really liked this at the time. But the truth is, the fact is that it was a lie. Or at least not the full truth. Because after both of these panels dropped in the middle of Marineford, we saw Whitebeard straight up tell Ace to not go after Blackbeard. He said, "I have a bad feeling." Ace left against the will and the wishes of Whitebeard. When Shanks came calling, Whitebeard lied to him. And so it's from this point that we as fans, if Oda doesn't give us a direct answer, we have to figure it out and understand why. Oda's certainly being consistent. An exception was also made for Odin. As I alluded to in my first reaction, my belief is that Whitebeard feared losing his children, which are his treasure. To expand upon what I was talking about, again in my first reaction, there was a fight between Roger and Whitebeard and they're stealing each other's treasure and it's no big deal. But the moment that Roger tried to take a member of his crew, take Odin, Roger was genuinely apologetic. He begged Whitebeard, and Whitebeard was genuinely mad. Because what Whitebeard cares most about is his crew. I personally think that in most circumstances, in most instances, Whitebeard would actually follow his reputation, which is if somebody attacks and kills a member of his crew, then he's going for revenge. I find that I personally believe that Odin and Ace were both exceptions, because Whitebeard feared Kaido and Blackbeard. As he said about Blackbeard, I have a bad feeling. I think that bad feeling was that if we go after Blackbeard, and if we go after Kaido, some of my sons will die. Essentially, you learn this and you have to change the rules. It isn't that Whitebeard, under any circumstance, is going to get revenge if you kill a member of his crew. Whitebeard's first going to ascertain whether there's risk to everybody else who still lives. So the rule that actually takes precedent is protect your treasure. Which again would be a nice way to explain why Whitebeard would go out of his way, even going against other rules to go save Ace, because Ace was still alive. The treasure was still there to be protected. Next comment, Joyboy, Whitebeard made the right decision. He should not have risked the lives of his family to revenge the death of one member. It was not weakness, it was strength. So I understand the point of this comment, and to some extent I agree, but I also fundamentally disagree, because you're suggesting that there is one way that is right. But I think that they both can be right. I think you're defining weakness and strength here wrong. I think that a fundamental theme of One Piece is strength is essentially doing what it is that you want to do, and not being controlled by your fears. Would you say that it's weakness if a man wants to live a simple life and find a wife and live peacefully and have children and not become the Pirate King? If that's what he wants to do, if that's the life that he wants to lead, that's strength. But if you have the same life, but instead the person doesn't want these things, what he instead wants is he wants to become the king of the pirates, but simply is too afraid to set sail. That's weakness. Obviously, you could talk about this specific example for a lot longer. I want to avoid that because of characters such as Yasop. People have strong opinions about somebody abandoning their family, and it can be strength either way, choosing to abandon your own interests for the sake of others, or being selfish, as probably Yasop was, going out to sea. But the general message of One Piece, I think, seems to be, live your life. Don't be afraid, and pursue your dreams. Ultimately, your family should understand if that is what you really want. Kind of an interesting random example here is there's probably a lot of mothers who don't want their children to become professional athletes, or a great example would be like an MMA fighter. But these fighters, in some cases, not every case, are choosing to act against the interests and against the fears of their family. Your mother doesn't want you to hurt, but you want to be great. You know, it's just interesting that sometimes what your family wants doesn't or shouldn't matter. I'm sure that there are many people out there whose parents didn't want them to be, for instance, gay, but they are gay. And the act of living your life and being who you are and being open about it is strength. But obviously, deep conversation is deep. Because this is the point of contention. Ultimately, when you dig down to the heart of it, what people don't like is Whitebeard's ambition was limited. At this stage in his pirate crew, I think Whitebeard is more akin to that man who was satisfied with a simple, easy life. He's got his crew, he's got his family, and he doesn't want anything else. And he doesn't want to lose what he already has. And so in this case, yes, it is strength to choose to not go after Odin and attack Kaido and potentially disappoint your children. At the same time, it was weakness on Whitebeard's part to not prevent Ace from going after Blackbeard if Ace being there and not doing that was what you desired. Or it could be weakness if you did want to get revenge on Blackbeard but chose not to because of fear. Do you see the layers here? It's honestly a very complicated topic. It can also be strength to purposefully allow your children to be free, even if you might fear what it is that they will do. At the end of the day, summed up as simply as I can, strength in One Piece I think is most easily defined as acting against your fears, not being controlled by your fears, but still doing what it is that you want to do, whatever that might be. Next comment, Big Mom had children after consuming her fruit and Mother Carmel. So I got a bunch of comments like this, and essentially what this is talking about is my tinfoil theory in the middle of my first reaction, talking about, the question of what happens when a Zone Devil Fruit user or a Devil Fruit who has inherently changed someone's body in a very physical sense has children. Honestly, this might be the first time that you actually have to watch that video to understand this comment and my explanation of it, because I go way off in left field. But essentially the point is that a lot of people misunderstood what I meant. The question I asked is, do we have any canon confirmed Zone Devil Fruit users who have had children after they have consumed their fruits? I confused people by talking about Luffy, so we're not going to talk about that at all. We're going to ignore it for now. And the point of this theory is how did the fishmen and the minks come into this world? We know that there are now fish class zone fruits, so maybe fishmen are... that race came to be from people eating fish zone fruits. Ultimately, I wonder whether Yamato was in some way affected, being Kaido's son, affected by Kaido's fish fruit. Maybe the best way to explain this is to think about something that literally nobody has ever thought about ever. All right, you guys ready for this one? This is going to be crazy. All right, but you'll understand the point. We know that objects can consume devil fruits in the world of One Piece through some means. So we've seen, for instance, Phantom's sword, Funkfried, which was originally a sword. It consumed an elephant fruit, and we presume that it can fully transform into an elephant. Can this elephant procreate with another elephant? Would the children of this elephant sword and a real elephant be more elephant-like, or be half sword? Does this even work? Here's another stupid example. Assume that there's another sword out there that has consumed a different kind of elephant fruit, and it can procreate with Funkfried elephant-wise. Would they then birth another sword? Or would their children be an elephant? You could even apply this logic to, say, animals like Chopper. Chopper was a reindeer who consumed a human fruit. Could Chopper then procreate with another human? Would their child be 50-50, reindeer and human, or because of the human fruit, be something else? I mean, my man's Chopper been eyeing some minks, I'm just saying. Obviously, guys, this may be something that Oda doesn't want us to think too much about. But this is sort of the basis, or could be part of the basis, for justifying how devil fruits have influenced and diversified the world of One Piece. But essentially the point of all this is that you have a character like Chopper who's consumed a devil fruit. He then procreates with a hot human nurse, and they can actually have children, and this is the birth of the mink race. If this were to be true, you would also expect to see some effect from a regular human procreating with another regular human that both have zone devil fruits. Obviously, we're getting really crazy here, but I hope that this helps explain a little bit further the concept. Kaido, even as a human with a mythological fish fruit, has a child that is affected by the devil fruit. I'm specifically looking at fruits which permanently changes the user's body, and thereby their DNA. So I'm eliminating the vast majority of paramecia fruits that produce a substance or control a substance or unlock various realms of existence, which would be like Capone Beige's fruit. Big Mom's fruit falls under the class of manipulation. She can manipulate souls, but her body itself has not fundamentally changed. She isn't soul form. But I'm laughing over here to myself. This is so crazy. Like, Kaido as a dragon finds another dragon. Boom, Yamato, half dragon. I'm just saying. But let's not get myself in trouble here. Next comment. The key to Kaido being a dragon is that it is the mythical koi koi fruit. It comes from the Chinese legend in which a group of golden koi are swimming upstream. They reach a waterfall and many give up, but some carried on jumping up the waterfall. A group of demons saw the koi and heightened the waterfall out of spite. Then after 100 years of jumping, one single koi reached the top of the waterfall. The gods were watching, decided to reward the koi for its efforts, and transformed it into a dragon. This theory is probably the most popular theory after the chapter for what Kaido's actual devil fruit is going to be. I don't really have too much to add to this, I'm just including this because I like the theory. But you know, while we're being stupid here, another stupid theory. So, Kaido was originally a koi, like a real koi. He was like Laboon that followed the Rock's pirates. Big Mom gave him this fruit, which transformed him into a Ryujin. Ryujin can shapeshift, so his human form and his dragon form are all the devil fruit, and he was originally just a fish. Kaido confirmed. Hey man, I'm just saying that Big Mom seems to really be holding this devil fruit over Kaido's head. Kaido doesn't fear death, so maybe the fruit gave him human life, basically. God, this chapter was so good. Next comment, Joy, would please talk about red scales on Kaido's left body. If it's true, I guess Kaido is a red fish koi, and the blue dragon is the awakening mode of the Uo Uo no Mi. I just want to include this because this is another cool way of taking that mythological koi fruit. Essentially, that when you first consume the fruit, you're just a koi fish. But if you awaken the fruit, then you become a dragon. That's pretty dope. My only reservation on this idea is Momonosuke's fruit, which I assume to be based on Kaido's, and he immediately became a dragon. So that's kind of how I'm assuming that Kaido's worked. Next comment, Kaido should be able to drown because his gills are caused by his devil fruit, not his personal characteristics. Like Marco can't regenerate when he is wearing sea prism cuffs, but Jack is a fishman which allows him to breathe underwater. So you've kind of pointed out a interesting possible plot hole here. I'm not saying that it is, but it could be. But ultimately we know that Luffy can actually stretch underwater. But Luffy is different because he is rubber. So the devil fruit, the sea, doesn't change his body. It's not like when Blackbeard touches someone and he takes their fruit, they lose their ability. So if Blackbeard were to touch Luffy, Luffy wouldn't be rubber anymore. So if he tried to stretch Luffy's arm, he would just tear it off. As a side note, I think that there are huge health ramifications for Luffy transforming into something like Gear 4th and then Blackbeard touching him. Realistically, Luffy should explode. Meanwhile, in the sea, as I said, Luffy can still stretch. What the sea does, at least as far as I'm aware, is it saps a devil fruit user's energy. They become weak. So I presume that if somebody was wearing Sea Prism Stone and couldn't use their abilities, it's a factor of energy. Like it actively requires them to expend energy to use that ability. So an example of this would be the vast majority of Paramecia fruits and obviously, as you suggested, Marco's regenerative abilities. Essentially, you would have to argue that it costs energy for them to do it and they are too weak. So then what would have to be the case if Kaido were in a situation where he was drowning? If he were to survive that, then it would have to cost no energy to transform into his dragon form. That or the devil fruit form is literally the base form. It's the natural state that Kaido's body should be in, and it instead requires energy for him to transform back into a human. Next comment, Kaido missed his chance at a glorious death because Big Mom gave him the fruit. I actually like this take quite a lot. You'll notice that anytime this is brought up, right, Big Mom is the one holding it over Kaido's head that I say, that you owe me a lifelong debt. But Kaido's never been like, yeah, that's true. I think that we definitely know that Kaido and Big Mom have different priorities. And I think that it's reasonable for Big Mom to think, oh, life, something precious. I gave you life, therefore you owe me. But then Kaido in his own mind being like, well, I kind of wanted to die. So this what you think that this is worth is it's not worth the same to me. Next comment, I'm interested to see where Oda finally goes with this betrayal theme. We're all waiting for Big Mom and Kaido to turn on each other, which is what Oda is heavily leading up to. But what if this is to misdirect us from the true betrayal that is coming from our allies? At this point in the story, Oda is being very open with us with the fact that Big Mom is going to betray Kaido and Kaido knows it. Therefore, this happening is not going to be a big deal. For me, unless Oda starts going in the opposite direction and actually convinces us that this alliance is legit, then this is simply a red herring. It's to distract us from something else that Oda intends to do. It could be that Big Mom betrays Kaido in an unexpected way, like with a food rage, or there's another betrayal coming that we're not supposed to expect. Some examples of this, I think that this comment is alluding to, Law betraying Luffy. I've talked about this at length. One that I definitely think is going to happen is Big Mom's own children betray her. That would be game-changing and really, really ironic. But the point is that Big Mom betraying Kaido, very obvious in the story, probably not going to be the big betrayal that Oda is leading up to, still. Next comment, I'm sure you've all been noticing how the pacing in One Piece has literally gone from 10 to 10,000 crazy fast. So what if Oda is teasing us with Oden's journal in this chapter and trying to pace the story so chapter 1000 is the D reveal chapter? I really don't think so, but absolutely it's possible. So some information that dropped that was translated by people who read Japanese, I believe this was within Jump Magazine, they told us the title of the next chapter. The title will be The Legend Never Ends. Do I think that this chapter will be a full D reveal and we'll know the meaning of that letter? No, I think that's something that's going to be saved for later. But is this chapter going to relate to the initial D, Inherited Will? I think that it very easily could, and that title has me mightily excited. Obviously, you pointed out Oden's journal. Yamato knows the secrets. Could we get something about Joy Boy? Absolutely, I think that that's possible as well. The Legend Never Ends could also refer to Oden, and it could refer to what we are going to talk about in the next comment. God Valley flashback on chapter 1000. I'm calling it, boys. This is probably what I actually believe. In my head, at least for now, if I'm going to do an official chapter 1000 prediction, it's that we obviously ended this chapter with Kaido and Big Mom conversation. She brought up God Valley and then giving Kaido the fruit. I think we start the next chapter with a God Valley flashback. The legend never ends. And then the end of the chapter is Luffy and Zoro, both of them reaching the roof, encountering Big Mom and Kaido, discovering the fates of the samurai. The legend never ends, if you get my meaning. And then the curtain is cut for the end of Act 3. The only thing that's holding me back from the actual Act 3 ending is some fights have not been fully established yet, such as Robin and Brook, and I feel like they need to be established before, we start the battle, which is going to be the Straw Hats versus Kaido, not the Scabbards. Another thing which has been pointed out to me is that in chapter 100, we got an entry panel as well of a quote of Gold D. Roger, one of the most important quotes in all of One Piece, and we could see something very similar in chapter 1000, or maybe a quote from another character such as Rocks. That would be interesting. But yeah, buckle yourselves up, boys. The legend never ends. Maybe we get a little bit of Joy Boy and D in here as well. I mean, I've pointed this out. We've talked about a lot of the chapter titles over the last 10 chapters and related it to multiple parts of the chapter itself. Like we did in the last chapter, the whole chapter resonates with the title, sometimes directly and sometimes in very subtle ways. I absolutely expect something similar to happen in the next chapter. The legend never ends. We might have multiple events going on, and it might relate to all of them. It'll be a chapter which heavily relates to the inherited will and the legacy of great people. But sometimes you just gotta let it happen. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I had to say today. As always, I'm curious as to what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you disliked the video, subscribe if you want to be notified for my future content, and as always, guys, have a wonderful day.